Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this ARTA 101 webinar presented by HearingLife. We're excited to be joined today by Jillian Price, Laurie Van Wyck, and Cheryl Anderson of HearingLife, who will be taking care of this presentation for us today. A couple of housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded, and as such, your video and mic capabilities have been turned off. If you do have any questions, we ask you to post them in the Q&A box. It's the two little speech bubbles in the Zoom webinar menu there. So please refrain from using the chat. It gets a little hard to track that questions have been responded to. So if you can use the Q&A feature, we'll make sure to answer all of those questions either with direct responses or by answering them live on this call. So that I'll turn it over to the wonderful HearingLife team to take us through their presentation today.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Well, welcome ARTA members to our Healthy Hearing webinar. We're excited to have you with us today. And what we're going to do is review some of the most common questions and topics that we've encountered over many, many webinars and live visits, different places. And we just want to make sure that we're providing the best information for you, you being our valued ARTA members. And it's all about regarding your hearing health care and making sure that we can make it better. So today I have my friend Cheryl Anderson, who's our affinity coordinator, and we have Jillian Price, who's our director of audiology and client experience. And we want this to be interactive. So we're going to, like Amanda said, we're going to give you opportunities to ask in the question and answer section. In the comment area at times, Cheryl's going to post some information and contact info and all sorts of that stuff as well. And to keep it fun, we're going to have sporadic questions for some chances to win some $20 Tim Hortons gift cards. So, Jill, let's start with the basics. What are the most common signs and symptoms of hearing loss for someone who's experiencing some decline in hearing? And what do family and friends watch for?
Okay, so hi, Laurie, and hi, everybody who's joining us today. So as Laurie said, I'm Jillian Price. I've been an audiologist for 18 years, and I'm the Chief Audiologist and Director of Audiology for HearingLife. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of information today and also answer any questions that you may have. So Laurie's question is, probably one of the most important ones to know is, what am I supposed to look for and how do I know if I have some hearing loss, or what should I be, looking for in my everyday life? Well, I'm going to start out with a statistic, because you may be surprised to learn how common hearing loss is around the world, but let's just look at Canadians in particular. So the percentage of Canadians that have some degree of hearing loss is actually 47%. So that is a big, big number when we're looking at a specific age group. So it is very common. It's 1 in 5 in the general population. So to say that a lot of individuals are struggling is very accurate. It is something that most of us will experience at some point in our lives. And the biggest culprit would be noise exposure. So living in a noisy world. So years and years of that takes its toll on your ears. And that's why at some point we end up with some permanent irreversible damage. What you should look for when you're sort of gauging your ears and how well you hear is, the first sign that may show up would be struggling to hear in background noise. So when the situation is challenging for you, it could be in a noisy restaurant or when you're socializing, and you start to notice that you're not catching everything. And that's how it will show up. It won't show up that you just all of a sudden can't hear. That's not how hearing loss works for a lot of people. It is a very gradual, sort of slow decrease in your ability to hear certain sounds, mainly soft sounds. And that really shows up when you're in background noise, because obviously the situation isn't ideal anymore and you can miss more pieces of a conversation. So really look for that one. If that's happening to you, it's time to get your hearing tested. Now, we all struggle a little bit to hear in background noise, but if you are missing more conversation than, say, the other people that you're with, that's sort of your key to say, okay, maybe it's time for me to test my hearing. Some other things that might happen is that you may notice that people start to sound like they're mumbling, but in actuality, they're not. They just sound like it to you because when you have hearing loss, what happens is clarity is diminished. So it's not that you can't hear, you can, but conversation doesn't sound as clear anymore. It sounds muffled, or certain words sound really, just it sounds like people are mumbling. That's really sort of the description we get from people who are starting to notice that they're having some difficulty, is that it sounds like everyone's mumbling around them. You may also notice that you're starting to turn things up. Well, that's a pretty obvious sign that maybe something's going on. So if you used to listen to your TV at volume 10, and now it's going up to volume 17, that could be an indication that you're compensating for your hearing loss by turning up the volume. A really good indicator of that something might be going on is the people you live with. So please listen to your loved ones, because they will notice probably before you do. So if you are watching TV with your loved one, spouse, partner, and this volume is not ideal for both, whereas you would like it turned up louder, or maybe you're sitting with your family and everyone's telling you, why do you have the TV so loud? That may be an indication that there's something going on and you should absolutely get your hearing checked. There's a few other signs, but honestly, you want to look for if you're turning things up, if it's hard to hear in background noise, and if things start to sound less clear, or you're just missing bits and pieces of a conversation. Those are some telltale signs that something might be going on.
Okay. Well, let's just kick this off with a question. And I've got a gift card up for grabs. So we'll see how well everyone was listening. What percentage of Canadians over 60 years of age have some degree of hearing loss? And so you want to just answer in the comment section. The first person, and Amanda, can you let us know the first person to answer correctly? Yep. Now I see an answer come up. Is Pat? Is that the first one, Amanda?
Well, they came in two different places. So the first one that came in on that I can have a time recording on the Q&A was Donna Smith.
Okay. Well, you know what? That was my fault for not saying in the beginning. So Donna and Pat both get a gift card for that one. We'll just make it work that way.
Perfect.
Congratulations, ladies. Okay. So Jill, if members are experiencing all the symptoms that you mentioned, how do they know what the true culprit is? Could it just be wax?
Great question. And I get asked this a lot about wax, what to do about wax, when is wax a problem? So I'll talk a little bit about wax. Wax is not a problem. It's supposed to be there. Everybody will create wax in their ears, and it has a lot of protective properties. Keeps foreign objects like bugs and insects from nesting in your ears. It also helps to lubricate the ear, because we actually need a bit of lubrication so our ears don't feel dry, irritated, and itchy. So it does have a purpose, and you want some wax. But when it becomes an issue is when you have too much wax. Some people do generate more wax than they need, or the shape of their ear canal prevents wax from migrating out of the ear canal the way it's supposed to. It actually migrates naturally. You don't need to clean your ears. You don't need to shove anything in your ears to get that wax out. If you just let them be, the wax will make its way out on its own. So that's one thing. Please do not put anything in your ears to clean your ears. Let your ears do what it's meant to do naturally. But for some people, they do need a bit of assistance, because for the reasons I mentioned, it doesn't come out the way it should. So wax can be a culprit for some people. And yes, for some individuals, they think that something's going on. And when we have a look in the ear, we see that it's just a buildup of wax, and that is so easily fixable. We will help you with a strategy to remove the wax, or we'll remove it ourselves. And then hearing is back to essentially normal if that was the reason for the issue. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're not sure, the very first thing we're going to do when you come to see us is we're going to look in your ears, because of course that's what we want to know too. So if you are not sure, you think it might be wax, just come in and see us and we can take care of that problem. Whether it is wax or not, we are there to help you. So if you are not sure, my suggestion is come in to see us. I'm also just mentioning that if you're not sure if it's wax, something that can happen if you do have a lot of wax buildup or fluid buildup in the ear, or something is blocking the ear, is you may start to notice a ringing in your ear. That can actually either get worse or begin as a result of wax. So that is called tinnitus or tinnitus. You can say it either way, doesn't matter. And so if you are experiencing a ringing or pulsating or some sort of sound in your ear that either kind of came on spontaneously or might have been there for a while, that's another indication that you should come in and see us.
Speaking of ringing in the ears, which is an extremely common topic that we get, it's quite prevalent amongst the general population. Would you agree?
Yes. So in the general population, it's about 15% that experience some tinnitus. But when we look at just individuals who have hearing loss, there's a real connection between those two. So 90% of people who have some tinnitus also have some hearing loss. So the two do go hand in hand. And the reason for that is that tinnitus is connected to noise-induced hearing loss. So if you have any sort of noise exposure, or you have been exposed to excessive noise, and the damage to your hearing is a result of that, also tinnitus may come. So tinnitus is sort of a symptom. It is not a disease in itself. It's with other things. So tinnitus is related to hearing loss. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have both, but there is a high correlation between the two. So if you are experiencing tinnitus, again, really you should have an audiological evaluation. We have several things that we're going to do, starting with a case history to figure out what is the issue. There is no cure for tinnitus, unfortunately. And there are many different solutions we can offer you to try to sort of provide you with some relief. And that's really what we're looking for when we treat tinnitus, is some relief to try to either minimize the volume, the sound, or how much it's affecting you in your day. There are degrees of severity with tinnitus. There are many reasons, many causes. It's very hard to pinpoint, though, exactly what is causing your tinnitus, but absolutely, number one, anyone's going to tell you in this profession that getting your hearing checked is the very first thing you need to do if you are experiencing tinnitus. So that would be my suggestion if this is happening to you and you're not sure why.
Okay. And speaking of hearing tests, I love our video that's on our regular hearinglife.ca website. And it just shows what happens at a hearing test, what to expect. And before I play it, though, I'd want to point out, some people aren't aware that there is no need for a doctor's referral to get a free hearing test. And of course, ARTA members and your immediate family, so that's your spouse or partner, your parents, and your children, all receive 50 air miles versus the standard 25 air miles for completing your first hearing test. And anyone that's on today's webinar, Cheryl and I will provide our emails. We're going to double that to 100 air miles for you, just to encourage you to get a baseline test. But before we watch the video, I got another card here. So first person to respond correctly in the chat box, not the Q&A. There you go. So I just said it. Who's your immediate family member? It can be any one of them. And Amanda,
So Terry Henderson answered correctly with spouse.
First one, perfect. Yeah, so it could be spouse, partner, parents, and children.
At a hearing test, I can tell you, I've done a few. So the first thing you need to know is it's completely painless. So there is nothing we're going to do that's going to cause any pain or discomfort. You'll be in and out in an hour, and you will have all the results communicated to you by the end of the appointment. So you're going to walk away knowing what is my hearing like. And we're going to look into your ear again to see if there are any blockages, any wax buildup, and to see how your eardrum looks, to see if it's healthy. Then we're going to put you in a sound treated room, like a small booth, and you're going to listen to some sounds. They sound like beeps, and they're different tones and they're different volumes. And essentially, you're going to let us know what you hear and what you don't. We'll do a few specialized tests that really help us understand how well you understand speech, communication, so the spoken words, and how well you hear in background noise. And then we're going to communicate all of that to you afterwards and talk to you about treatment solutions if that is appropriate. That's the hearing test.
And then, well, let's just roll right into what are some of the possible outcomes from a hearing test, and I guess types of hearing loss would also be involved in that too.
Sure. So you have a few outcomes that might happen as a result of getting your hearing tested. The first outcome is there's nothing wrong. Your hearing is within normal limits. You understand conversation well, and you do pretty well in background noise. So we don't have any red flags, and we would basically give you a recommendation for the schedule of when you should be coming back to get your hearing tested. And of course, we're going to look at your age and your case history to see when that should be for you. Generally, it's 2 to 5 years if you're over the age of 60 and you have no hearing loss, and it's annually if you do have hearing loss. So that's one option. The second option is we do find some hearing loss, and your hearing loss falls within the range or the category where treatment is recommended. And that's when we're going to talk about treatment solutions. So there are 3 types of hearing loss if you are told that you have some hearing loss, and I have them on the screen for you just to make it easy to see and understand. I'm not going to get into the anatomy or anything because that's a whole nother webinar, but I just want to let you know that there are essentially 2 main types of hearing loss: sensory neural and conductive. So those 2 large circles that, yes, they are overlapping. So sensory neural is essentially a permanent hearing loss. It's the most common type of hearing loss and what most of us will experience at some point in our life. The reason why it's permanent is because hair cells die in our ear over time, and they do not regenerate. So once they're gone, they're gone. So when you do have hearing loss as a result of all of those that are listed, it's not coming back. Hearing loss is generally progressive, but very gradual. So it does happen over many years, sort of over time. Now, the other main type of hearing loss is called conductive. And this is when there's actually something physically going on with the ear. It could be with many different parts of the ear. A really common one is impacted wax. So you can actually have a hearing loss, but it's all due to wax. And once we remove the blockage, your hearing is essentially normal because there's actually nothing wrong with the hair cells at all. Another one is if you rupture your eardrum, which can happen and has happened to many people. It's a common injury for the ear. Can happen as a result of a really severe ear infection. It can happen as a result of car accident, head trauma. So if you do have a hole in your eardrum, it may be repairable, but if it's not, then you may be left with some hearing loss as a result. Those are, and I have a few others listed. Now, where we have the overlap is you can also have what's called mixed, which is you have a little bit of both. So you have some permanent hearing loss, you have some that's a result of something conductive going on, and the 3 that are listed are the most common: head trauma, infections, and genetic disorders. So that is types of hearing loss in a nutshell. And you will know immediately after your hearing test what type of hearing loss you have. You'll know the degree of hearing loss you have, so how much, and you'll also know what sounds are affected. So do you have hearing loss across the board, or do you only have hearing loss for certain pitches? which is most common, is that we lose the ability to hear some pitches, not all. Hopefully that was a pretty good answer for that. And I think I covered everything.
It's great. The visual actually helps a lot too.
Yeah, it does.
So we know, as you mentioned, sensorineural is the most common age-related hearing loss. So let's dive in a little bit deeper into what are the treatment options when we have that common type of hearing loss.
Yeah, so when you have that type of hearing loss, the most common treatment option that is available is hearing aids. I will, spoiler alert, and fortunately I can't tell you that it is curable or that there's any surgery to fix permanent hearing loss. There's not. So this is why so many people are suffering from untreated hearing loss, is because there's not a lot of options out there if you do have sensorineural loss. Hearing aids is the best treatment for you, and it's quite successful. So we can fit successfully about 90% of people that come into our doors that are experiencing permanent hearing loss. So, you know, the range at which the population that we can treat and that it's successful is very, very high. So that's great. So really start thinking about hearing aids, start sort of, you know, understanding what that would mean is if I have a hearing loss, then I have to think about hearing aids is going to be my treatment. It's very similar to your eyes, right? So at some point, your eyesight is not what it was in your 20s. And so you have to start thinking about, is it time for me to wear glasses? And then there are different types or different solutions available to you. Maybe you want to wear contacts, maybe you want to wear glasses. And maybe you're a candidate for surgery. That's sort of what it's like for hearing loss. Some people are a candidate for surgery because they have the type of hearing loss, and most are not. So then we're looking at some sort of amplification to help you compensate for the sounds you're not hearing. Does that cover everything, Laurie?
Yeah. Do you happen to have one of our rechargeables on your desk?
I sure do. Thanks for reminding me.
I love the look of them, because when you think over there, you think, ugh, it's going to be big. And
yes, thank you for reminding me. I do happen to have a pair, and they're very tiny, as you can see on the screen. And I actually will even go ahead and put one of these on so you can see what it looks like when it's on an ear. So just let me get my hair out of the way. And I think I'll probably, I can try to leave sorry, I have my earbuds in too. Oh, I guess that one has to come out. Let me take this out. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yep, great. Okay, so I'm gonna slide this over the back of my ear. And then there's a tiny little wire with a small earbud, and that goes into my ear so that I can actually hear the sounds. I'll just turn my head. And you probably really can't see it, because that's the whole point. It's not supposed to be bulky or, you know, it's like a big sign on your head that says, hey, I'm wearing a hearing aid. It's quite discreet. It's very comfortable, very lightweight. And really, you don't even know that it's on. And that's the thing. You're just supposed to be able to go on with life. It's not supposed to interfere with your life or your lifestyle. It's supposed to help and just blend in and be part of your everyday routine. If you are a little unsure about hearing aids, you don't know much about them, I strongly encourage you to come in and talk to a professional about it. Come and see your hearing healthcare professional. Get the information you're looking for. Touch and feel one. We have them in the office. You can try one on. You can hear what they sound like and get an idea of what truly it is. I hope you don't, there are a lot of myths out there about hearing aids, and some negative, feedback from many years ago when hearing aids did not look like this. And they have just come such a long way. They're amazing, really. They're amazing. So if it's been a while since you've gone in and talked to somebody, or maybe it's just happening for you now, come in and get the information you need, and then make your informed decision about whether a hearing aid might be right for you.
And ARTA members, or all affinity members, actually get free, no money upfront trials for 30 days. So that's kind of an added bonus that just the general public doesn't get those offers. So then there's just, let's figure it out. Am I ready or not? Does it make enough of a difference? And definitely. Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
I was just going to say, and I have heard this comment so many times. I'd be rich if I had money every time I heard this, which is, I wish I had done this sooner because they had put it off, or I really didn't think it was going to be this great. So the expectations were completely different than the reality. So I hope you go in with an open mind, because this really can be life-changing. Hearing loss is something that, it really affects your everyday. And if you just, maybe even for a day, paid attention to how much you need your ears to do everything, the listening and communicating with other people is how we function in the world. So when that's taken away from you, or when you're struggling, it really does affect every day of your life. And so why struggle when you don't have to? Let the hearing aid do the work so that you can get back to living your life. And so that's what people tell me, is for those that were maybe waited a little too long, or were really hesitant, is that they wish they hadn't.
And yeah, someone years ago when I was a clinician said, a hearing loss is more noticeable than a hearing aid. And that rings true, because, saying pardon, what was that? And always catching up, or saying the wrong answers to things, really is a lot more noticeable to others than this little wee wire. But then there's that big question, why doesn't everyone seek help?
Yeah. And I think I've sort of touched on it a bit, is there is a bit of stigma still associated with hearing loss. And I think it's because it's related to something that happens as we age. So the two get associated, is that if I wear a hearing aid, or I tell the world by wearing a hearing aid, I'm saying that not only can I not hear, but I'm getting older. But that's not necessarily the truth. Hearing loss is present in all age groups. And if you can tell the world that your eyes aren't perfect by wearing glasses on your face, what's the difference with hearing aids? It's just one of your other senses that is so important to function in the world. You need your eyes to see so that you know what's going on and you can be present, and you need your ears to participate in your life, because that's the social aspect, and we are social beings. So those two are so important. And, when one of those is not performing optimally, we notice. So that's why, I'm very passionate about ears, because I know how important they are, and I know the impact it has when people are really living their lives with untreated hearing loss and suffering unnecessarily, because I know that there is a treatment out there that can help them.
So let's go discuss some of the average costs and why hearing aids are a costly medical device. Well, I would say a medical device / investment in my mind. But I know now, I believe in Alberta, there is some funding available to assist a bit. And then, of course, I will mention it's my job. ARTA members get an extra 10% off any promotional price or anything. It's always and immediate family members as well. So whatever that sale or deal is, then there's the extra 10% that they're always going to get.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. There are many factors that will affect the cost of a hearing aid, and probably primarily the one that's going to change the pricing or how much you will pay out of pocket is the technology level you choose. Now, I sort of hate using this comparison because they are nothing alike, but it's very relatable, so I'm going to use it. If you think about a car, and when you go to the car, you have sort of your base model, which they say, this is what comes standard in the car. And then they start adding on features. which make the driving experience much more pleasurable. And also things like added safety features. So as they add on each feature, the cost of the car goes up, right? So these packages that you can add to the car can significantly change the price of the car from its base price. It's sort of the same with hearing aids in terms of technology. You can get a base hearing aid, which we call basic, which will allow you to hear in sort of quiet situations and you will do well. But where that hearing aid may not be enough is when you start going into more challenging environments. So those dynamic hearing situations where the technology needs to be really high tech in order to sort of pull away all that background noise and allow you to hear, that's when you need to start adding the features that will increase the cost of the aid. So we have 3 main levels of technology: basic, advanced, and premium. And it's sort of like how they add on features to a car. If you can think about that analogy, which most of us have purchased a car in our lives. So that's why it's relatable, even though they're not the same at all. So that will really affect the cost of your hearing aid in terms of out of pocket. You also just have some other options that might change the price, like if you want your hearing aids to be rechargeable, instead of putting batteries in on a regular basis, you can have a rechargeable. And so the one I showed you is a rechargeable, and it has its little charging station, and you pop them into the charger every night and you never have to change a battery. So that might be something that you're interested in. You may want your hearing aid to be Bluetooth compatible, which means you can use it with your cell phone, with your iPad. You can hook it up to other wireless accessories, which actually is really, really wonderful and opens up your world in terms of using other audio devices or devices you need audio for. So that might change the price. And then, as Lori mentioned, funding. So depending on what province you live in, that you may have some assistance that's provided by the provincial government. And so you may be able to access that.
And I think it's really important. I always say compare apples to apples, because basic, advanced, and premium are different in all different places. So they're not all the same. So it's important to, to make sure you're actually comparing the same things. And hearing aids generally last between 3 to 5 years for most people, because hearing changes and we change in that time frame. So that's also another good point I thought I'd throw out there. Okay, well, I got another gift card here. So name one factor that affects the cost of hearing aids. Can be any of the ones that Jill mentioned. And I'll rely on Amanda again.
We have an answer, Bluetooth.
Perfect. Yep, that's perfect. So an accessory. Yep. Awesome. Was that Rosemary?
It's Rosemary. Yeah.
Rosemary? Well, congratulations. Okay, Jill, what are the hidden effects of untreated hearing loss?
I'm glad you asked that question, because this is also another one I'm really passionate about. Just trying to get this point across. So I hope I do this well. There are so many hidden effects of untreated hearing loss that I think many people don't pay attention to or are not aware of. And this is because having hearing loss that is not, you haven't treated yet, it really affects the person you are. And the reason why it affects the person you are is because, again, it affects the way you interact with people in your life. So one of the things, the most common thing that happens is social isolation. So you may not even be aware that you're doing it, but people withdraw from social situations because they are either embarrassed about their hearing loss, ashamed about their hearing loss, or they just don't want to be uncomfortable because they know that they're going to miss parts of a conversation and they don't want to be in that situation. So instead of, if they don't have hearing aids and they haven't treated their hearing loss yet, they just, instead of attending, make up an excuse so why you can't go, right? So maybe that highly interactive, social, individual starts not showing up to those regular clubs, meetings, dinners, and it's kind of like, oh, what's going on with so-and-so? I haven't seen them much lately. And maybe they're just not comfortable saying, yeah, it's just so frustrating because I know I'm going to go and I know I'm not going to hear it very well. And I can only say pardon so many times. And I can only say, can you repeat that? Sorry, I didn't hear you, so many times before I'm really embarrassed. Or maybe I missed the punchline of a joke and I feel like I made a fool of myself. So I'm just not going to do that again. That happens all the time. And you can understand how the longer that goes, how much that can have an impact on your self-esteem and your confidence when you're out there in the world and you're presenting yourself. That's a real issue. And that goes way beyond just not being able to hear sounds, right? So anxiety and depression are all higher in individuals with untreated hearing loss. And that's the key word, untreated. Once you treat your hearing loss, we generally see that all of those levels reduce. So we have an improvement in one's overall confidence, esteem, less anxiety, less depression, and overall quality of life goes up. But it's when you're living with hearing loss and you're essentially suffering and struggling for no, I wouldn't say no reason, but when there's a treatment solution out there, that's when it can be really devastating. And it doesn't just affect the person that has hearing loss, it also affects individuals around them. So it sort of affects the whole family because communication is disrupted. So think about a husband and wife or two partners together who one can't hear and the other one is constantly having to repeat or maybe being misunderstood. And so the communication is sort of dwindling because they've just decided it's easier not to talk. It's easier not to watch that TV show together because we can't agree on a volume. These are all things that really happen. And both Lori and I have been told, you've saved our marriage. You should be a marriage counselor, because we've had patients who have said, I treated my hearing loss and my relationship with my partner is so much better. So I'm not just making these things up. They really do happen. And so to me, that's pretty important. And I mean, there are some other more serious hidden concerns with hearing loss, which is most recently, we've identified a relationship between untreated hearing loss and cognitive decline and dementia. So when we're thinking about some serious other health conditions that are related to untreated hearing loss, that one's pretty serious. So there are higher rates of, or you're at higher risk for dementia and cognitive decline the longer you go with untreated hearing loss.
And then how should members be more proactive about preventing hearing loss?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I've actually been reading quite a few articles lately that have really highlighted that noise. So we call it noise pollution, which is essentially living in a noisy world, and just not protecting your ears is the main reason why most of us end up with hearing loss in our 60s, 70s, and 80s. If we don't live in a noisy world, our hearing does not decline. And I find that fascinating. And that's through research done in populations and regions where noise pollution doesn't exist or it's extremely low. 80-year-olds have, essentially perfect hearing. And we here in North America start exhibiting signs of hearing loss about age 60. And that's because of the constant berating of sound to our ears day in and day out, even if you don't work in a noisy environment. The only way that you can prevent this, if you don't want to be 60, 70, 80 with hearing loss, is to protect your ears anytime you are exposed to excessive noise. And you may not even know or think that cutting the grass is excessive noise, or hair dryers, when you're drying your hair, can be excessive noise. Anything that is sort of loud or uncomfortably loud. And we all know when it's a little too loud. Anytime you exposing yourself to that, you're putting your ears at risk. And of course, your ears can bounce back, but do that over a number of years over the course of a lifetime, and you can see why your ears at some point it's going to say, okay, that's a little too much. You've damaged those hair cells, and that's irreversible. So wearing hearing protection is so, so important. I can't stress it enough. Concerts, cutting the grass, woodworking, any tools you use, if you have hobbies, if you ride a motorcycle, anything where your hobby involves loud noise, hearing protection should be worn to protect your ears, so that you're not going to be in the situation where you have to think about wearing hearing aids as your only option to treat your hearing loss in your 60s, 70s, or 80s. So do you have a sample, Lori, of what I'm talking about with custom hearing protection or different options?
Yeah, I mean, cutting the grass, my husband likes his noise plugs. They're customized. So the thing I want to point out, that with my research on the noise part of things, foam plugs are better than nothing. The only thing is that there's a certain way to put them in, and a lot of people never squish them and have them in properly. So we lose 5 to 15 decibels of that sound. So we've went with custom, which we can build to every person's ear, and they go right in your ear and they seal off perfectly. I don't know if anyone can see those.
Yeah,
I've
very
got them
nice.
in my
I can
HearingLife blue color, of course. And then also any noises that exceed 105 decibels should have earmuffs over earplugs. Those are another few points. And I'm excited that HearingLife is starting a hearing safety program. So it's all about preventing these problems that Jill mentioned happening. So noise prevention awareness and customized protection. So that's something new coming. And I have a girlfriend that I made sleep plugs for because her husband snored, and she's getting a lot better restful sleep. Just simple little things. And laying on them wasn't hurting like it was with her other models she had.
Yeah. So not everybody needs to get custom. Custom is great because they are more comfortable, and the reliability of your protection is way higher than your standard roll-ups, because like Lori mentioned, we know that they're going to seal off your ear perfectly because they're customized to the shape of your ear. So they are absolutely like number one. So if you're a music lover and you attend lots of live performances, custom earplugs are probably, a must. I have a pair, not because I'm a musician, but because I love live music. So anytime I go to a concert, I pop in my customs. But for the average everyday activity where you're not sure, if you're going to be somewhere that's noisy, or you're just going to be doing something sort of irregularly, the roll-ups do work quite well as long as you put them in your ear properly, and they're very inexpensive. You can get them at any pharmacy. There are different styles. You can do the foam roll-ups, you can do the silicone, which you can sort of mold. There's lots of different options, and they're going to cost you probably less than $5 for some of them. So it's very inexpensive. You can have a few. I always recommend, like, if you're not sure, put a pair in your car, put a pair in your purse, put a pair, just have them around so that if you do need to grab them really quick, then you have them. I travel with a pair. So if I'm in hotels, I always have a pair if there's something going on. But I just like to have something available, and it's really inexpensive if you just want to do the foam roll-up ones. Yeah.
For sure. And then I guess we're going to leave some time for question and answers, but I wanted, Cheryl, would you put up a slide for me? I did want to mention we do have 40 HearingLife clinics in Alberta, and we have 2 network partners in Lethbridge. So there's lots of dedicated professionals out there to serve you better. And I think Cheryl, if possible, is going to share the list of locations. But for those of you that want to contact Cheryl or myself directly, we can answer any additional questions that you have on hearing loss, benefits, baseline hearing test, and we can book it for you. And we'll also, so if you take down our information and want to contact us and you want those double air miles, we can do it personally for you. So there's no, if you go on hearinglifeadvantage.ca/ARTA, that gives you all of the information, and you can register there to find out about your benefits, which will be emailed to you, or the ARTA preferred partner line goes directly to our call center. So those are just, I wanted you to have the ability to be able to contact us if you need anything. So Amanda, any questions in the Q&A chat area for us?
We do have one question, and just as we kind of get started on it, I'll remind everyone participating today that if you do have any questions for the HearingLife team, you can type them into that Q&A box now, and we'll answer them here for everyone. So the first question that has come in is, what is the difference between an audiologist and a licensed practitioner? And should one see an audiologist yearly or the licensed practitioner?
Okay, thanks for your question. So the difference between an audiologist and a licensed practitioner is education. So an audiologist in Canada is a master's degree. So you do need to attend university, get your master's in usually communication sciences, specializing in audiology. So that is the education required for an audiologist. Also, what that also covers in terms of scope of practice is audiologists treat all populations, and that includes pediatrics, whereas a licensed practitioner does not. A practitioner generally deals with the adult population. The practitioner's course is a college certificate and generally takes 2 years to complete. Essentially, when you go into a clinic, both of us are going to be doing all the same tests. So there's really no difference in the adult population for a standard audiological assessment. It's when you need a sort of specialized care or you're in the pediatric population that you should seek the services of an audiologist.
Great. Do you need to remove a hearing aid to use earbuds for TV or music?
Ah, love this question.
That's a good one.
Yes. So if you have a hearing aid that is Bluetooth compatible, you do not need to remove, because your hearing aids will become your earbuds. So they essentially become your wireless, hands-free, Bluetooth compatible earbuds that you can stream music, listen to music, talk on the phone, it will connect to your cell phone. You can do everything you want. And hearing aids do not need to come out. You can essentially replace your earbuds with your hearing aids. That actually prevents people from having to switch back and forth between hearing aids in, hearing aids out, earbuds in. You won't have to do that anymore as long as you choose a hearing aid that is Bluetooth compatible. And to be honest, pretty much every hearing aid that is made is Bluetooth compatible now. So if you're getting something new or recent, it's most likely going to be Bluetooth compatible.
Okay. Just a couple minutes in case any other additional questions come in. I will remind all our participants too. I know some of you indicated that you are concerned about your hearing loss. We will be uploading a recording of this presentation to YouTube, and we will add closed captions to it so that if you felt like you missed any of today's presentation, you can go back and rewatch and read as well as listen. So we'll have that available by early next week. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So thank you all for participating today. Thank you to everyone who participated and to our wonderful panelists today for all the information. It was really informative. So might go get myself some custom earplugs.
Yes, you won't regret it. I promise you. I love mine. And you'll find many, many situations to use them in because you'll realize how noisy the world is.
I'm excited for better sleep. I'll try anything.
Yes, yeah, that too. That too. Thanks. I just want to say thanks to the people who attended today. I do appreciate your time. I hope you learned something. And I hope you love your ears as much as I love ears.
We had a comment that it was an exceptional presentation and they learned more today than in the last 20 years. So thank you.
Yay!
Perfect.
Thank
That
you.
just made my day. Thank you for that. That made my day.
Yes, you made our day. And it was great. And yeah, thanks for having us. We love this opportunity. And if something pops up and you have a question, get a hold of us. We'll get you the answer. If you need a live chat with us, we'll just do that too.
And Lori, is it best for the winners of the gift cards to just send you an email with their information?
Yes, if that's possible. If not, we have the names, so we can, if they want to contact us, that's great. It's a privacy policy thing, right? So
Perfect.
yes, reach out to us, or we can go through Amanda, whichever your preference is.
We put the email addresses there in the chat. So
Awesome.
the winners can copy those down here in these last few minutes, and then they can send you an email.
And I'll put them in the mail as soon as I get that. So they're coming from Ontario, so bear with the postal service. All right, great to see everyone.
Okay. Have a
Love
good day,
chatting.
everyone, then.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Right.